Hello and welcome. We're going to be looking into the story of the empath, what the traits are of an empath, some of the common challenges that an empath will face in their life, the gifts that the empath has to offer the world, and some of the strengths that can develop within the empath working through their adversities. First of all, if you are an empath, if you know someone who could be an empath, even if you're just curious about what empaths are, then listen closely. There's going to be a lot of information here that's going to be very important for navigating this very complex individual. Empaths are extremely intuitive and sensitive and connected with their emotions and connected with others. We need empaths in this world. However, it can be very difficult for an empath to grow up throughout its life having such sensitivities. That's why I'm doing this video, to shine some light on some of the traits and the challenges and also the strengths that can develop throughout an empath's life if they look at their true gifts as something that can be offered to the world and something of a bit of a superpower, actually. Again, not everyone is an empath. Empaths are beautiful. They are somewhat rare, but I feel that when we understand ourselves more, even in our depths of emotions, we can increase our empathic abilities and learn from empaths to be more compassionate and to be more sensitive and more tuned in and more understanding with life and with others. All right, so first, what is an empath? An empath is someone who possesses an innate ability to sense and resonate with the emotions and energies of others. This heightened sensitivity can manifest as an intense awareness of feelings, thoughts, and even physical sensations of those around them. Empaths often experience a deep emotional connection with people, animals, and nature, making them both compassionate and intuitive. So as I mentioned, empaths are beautiful. We need empaths in this world. They can communicate and articulate depths that a lot of people can't understand, a lot of people can't reach, or even inspire others to heal and to be more kind and compassionate towards themselves and towards also the world. However, as growing up as an empath, it can be very difficult. Not many people will understand the emotional complexities of an empath. Therefore, the empath may feel alone, may feel that nobody understands them, and may be stuck to their own devices to understand their emotional depths, which can also be a bonus in early or in later life. When one becomes more mature, they will develop a great deal of emotional intelligence if they begin to turn their maybe challenges and adversities into strengths and to deepen their understanding of their emotions in ways to help humanity, in ways to guide or lead or mentor. There are many opportunities for the empath to align with regarding leadership roles or even just in family dynamics, knowing how to navigate emotional difficulties and complexities through unconditional love and through understanding, and again, emotional intelligence and diplomacy. Being able to resonate and see perspectives and perceptions from other people and the dynamics of interpersonal relationships, so one can understand how to help and how to guide and maybe even mitigate some challenges and issues around them. I just first want to go into the child empath. So myself, as being an empath and a highly sensitive person, as a child, being an empath was really tough. And so I want to speak to either the child self of you watching potentially, or younger audience perhaps picks up this video. It is tough as an empath, as a child in our modern society. We are evolving and we are changing. And I do talk about the emotions often because our emotions are so important. Now, unfortunately, in modern society, we have become very numbed out from our emotions. Our emotions hold the key to understanding ourselves in deep and profound ways. Unfortunately, we have to go through the shadow and through the complexities in order to understand the depths of our emotions and to get in touch with our emotions and to heal ourselves from an emotional standpoint, and also to align with our whole being. We have to go through our emotional self. We have to go through our emotional complexities. We have to go through the difficult emotions, because those complexities and those contrasts with the light, with the good, with the joy, with the peace, with the happiness are essential to understanding the full spectrum of our emotional landscape. However, when we are children, it's really difficult to understand how we're feeling and how to interpret how we're feeling. So if you are a younger empath, or if you know an empath who is younger, if it is maybe someone in your family or even your child's self, have a lot of compassion and care towards emotionally sensitive people, especially if they are acting out, especially if they are angry, especially if they are trying to communicate but they can't, because the developmental phase of emotional connection and communication, the verbal expression of emotions, is very limited. It is really hard as children to effectively communicate what one is feeling because they are still developing. So it's very important for caregivers and adults and for us to even look back at our child's self with kindness and compassion and lean into the emotions. Even if a child is acting erratic and angry and uncontrollable, there is something within them that's trying to be expressed, that's trying to be heard, that's trying to be healed, that's trying to maybe be seen or understood. Because when we're not seen or understood, or when we're lost in our own emotional complexities and having a hard time even dealing with that, it can be a really difficult childhood to navigate through. And that's where a lot of people will lose their way through the developmental process, trying to understand or even have their emotions take over their consciousness and be in the driver's seat of their reality. And this is where one can be completely detached from themselves, when the emotional self is completely taking the helm and taking over their conscious level of awareness, their actions, their reactions, and their behavioral patterns. All right, so let's go into the traits of the empath. The first one is going to be high sensitivity. Empaths can pick up on subtle emotional cues, such as body language or tone of voice. The sensitivity allows them to understand unspoken feelings, but can also lead to feeling overwhelmed by negative emotions in their environment. Like I said, being highly sensitive is a beautiful, beautiful thing. When we feel so deeply, we can pick up on verbal cues, body language, energy, emotions without even having to put it into some kind of verbal understanding or intellectual understanding. It's a whole different way of a sensory experience of interpreting life and interpreting people. It has a whole language unto its own that cannot be verbalized. It is how an empath understands people. It's how an empath also understands and navigates in its environment. And as I mentioned, it can be very difficult in the developmental phase to understand how to use this as a bit of a superpower to navigate interpersonal relationships and environmental surroundings. The next one is going to be compassionate nature. With a natural inclination towards kindness, empaths often feel a profound urge to help others in distress. Their compassion drives them to advocate for others, often taking on causes that resonate with their values. So you'll often see empathic individuals or communities coming together to help the world, to help nature, animals, or communities. These types of empaths are very compassionate towards others and see causes or create causes to help humanity or to help certain areas in need based on their sensitivity and an urgency to help the world or to help their community in any kind of way. They're beautiful, beautiful hearts, big, caring beings who we, again, need in this world to help better humanity in some kind of way. The other is going to be strong listening skills. Empaths excel at active listening, providing a safe space for others to express themselves. Their ability to empathize allows them to offer valuable insights and support, making them trusted confidants. Maybe you're an empath and you've experienced this where people all of a sudden feel comfortable around you to share their deepest secrets, or they feel that they can trust you. This is something an empath possesses, where it's a very unique trait where people will feel comfortable telling them something personal or something sensitive and feel trusted and cared for in that space. This will also require a great deal of development as well, understanding the ability to empathize, to understand, but to hold the space in a very healthy way. This is a little bit of a tricky one as an empath develops, to understand its own sensitivities and its own shadow aspects so that it can hold the space in a very non-judgmental and a very empowering way. If the empath has not worked through its shadow, it may be difficult for an empath to hold a space in a way where people are properly cared for and they feel safe. So just like everyone, we all have our shadow aspects, and empaths especially could have potentially quite a lot of work to do within their shadow self to understand their own power, their own superpower within themselves, but also how they can interact with others in a way to make others feel safe and comfortable and secure in these environments. So there may have to be a bit more development integrated and worked on in order for an empath to feel safe themselves in this kind of environment, or to be in a place where they can safely and securely hold the space for others. Empaths also have a reflective mindset. They often engage in deep introspection, analyzing their feelings and the emotional landscapes around them. This reflective nature can lead to personal growth and enhanced self-awareness. This is a wonderful, wonderful trait for empaths, is the ability to gain self-awareness. Now, just like the other one, the previous one, I have to mention, there will be a little bit of wrestling and a little bit of wiggling in this one to work on oneself, but differentiating old false beliefs and patterns and the ego to fully align with oneself and their empathic abilities, and even, again, another superpower where they can turn inwards for self-empowerment and self-actualization. So this will take some time, as I mentioned, through the developmental process to understand and to distill between the ego, false beliefs, and their true self, their empathic abilities, and their ability to sense inward and introspect. But this ability that they have will help with that. Their empathic ability will be able to give them a boost in how they can turn inward and understand what the ego is, understand what the false beliefs are, understand even the body, how the body is responding, the physical bodily manifestations to certain life situations, challenges, and the like. The next one is going to be creative expression. Many empaths are drawn to artistic pursuits, using creativity as an outlet for processing emotions. This artistic expression can range from writing and painting to music and dance, allowing them to channel their feelings constructively. I'm sure you have seen many beautiful and potent artists in their deepest emotional pains or joys, expressing them from a place of depth. This is where many artists can take advantage of the depths within themselves, their emotional complexities, and even some of the difficulties that they have faced in life, or maybe some of the greatest moments and the deepest realizations or moments of awakening within themselves, to express it in some kind of creative form. This is a beautiful outlet for empaths in whatever creative form it is. I highly encourage any empath to have a bit of a creative outlet, a bit of an expression in some kind of way. It could be through any kind of medium whatsoever. It will be able to also, in some form, distill the emotions and understand some of the complexities that is within oneself through a bit of an outlet such as this. And the final one is going to be deep connections. Empaths value authentic relationships and often seek deep, meaningful connections with others. They thrive in environments where they can forge bonds based on trust and emotional resonance. This can be challenging for empaths. The relationship dynamics can be very challenging. However, they do have a yearning, a longing for deep connections, deep and meaningful conversations, rich conversations, and living in a world where there can be a divide between superficiality and maybe even different levels of depth within humans, conversation, relationships, and connection. So it's going to be up for the empath to be very mindful of these types of connections. Of course, they could be longing for or looking for deeper, meaningful connections. But as we're going to go through the challenges, there's going to be a challenge in here about interpersonal relationships and a bit of withdrawal, feeling as though they are alone and they aren't able to relate to the world or to anyone around them because they are different and because they They desire deep and meaningful conversations and connections. Again, this is a beautiful thing, and because we are in a world where there is a great deal of superficiality and surface level conversation, they may at times feel very alone and isolated and withdrawn. All right, with that, let's go into the challenges. The first one is going to be emotional overload. Being consistently attuned to the emotions of others can lead to emotional fatigue. Empaths may find themselves feeling drained, anxious, or even depressed when surrounded by negativity or conflict. If you are an empath or a highly sensitive person or both, I'm sure you can relate to this. There can be a great deal of overwhelm from others, from environments, and even from within self. I'm going to share a quick little story, even though this is not about emotions, but it is about sensitivity to the environment. A few months ago, I was working in a public library, and it was really hard for me to concentrate. It wasn't because of the noise necessarily. I had my headphones in, but I found my energy becoming very depleted, and it was really hard for me to focus. I had a very difficult time being really clear and sharp, how I'm used to functioning. And I looked up and there were rows and rows of these industrial lights. And I don't know if they were fluorescent, it doesn't matter, but I'm pretty sure they were affecting me. As soon as I left this library into the natural light, my energy lifted, the heaviness lifted, and my energy came back, and I became more clear in my functioning. So I did correlate my energy, my lack of clarity, my energy change, my lack of clarity, the fogginess, the heaviness that I had been carrying to these lights. It was the only thing that made sense. But because I'm very sensitive and getting even more tuned in, it's becoming more and more difficult to be in certain environments, and I have to pay attention and be very mindful and also very strong with my discernment and not having to push myself in situations that I really don't react well to. So I told one of my family members about this story and being in this environment, and I was made fun of, and then I was told to go back and put my headphones in and just get used to it. And this is the problem with society, is when we try to force ourselves into fitting in when we are not fitting 100%, we are suppressing ourselves. We are shoving our sensitivities down. We stop listening, we stop paying attention, and that's when we get sick. Not only do we get sick, we start becoming irritated, angry. We can't function properly. We can't read properly. We can't retain information properly. We start dumbing down. So do not listen to other people if they make fun of you or if they're trying to tell you to just tough it out. We have to start listening to ourselves, and we have to start paying attention to how we feel. We have become a numbed down and dumbed down society because of stuff like this, because we have been forced into situations. We have been told to just tough it out and stick through it and be placed in situations that may create a very subtle separation of our clarity or comfortability or focus, or anything of that nature, energy levels, for example. Pay attention to these subtleties, because when you start to tune in with them, they grow more and more. And the more that you honor them, the stronger your abilities are going to become. You're going to be thinking sharper, feeling better, feeling clear, tuning in more, becoming more intuitive, more sensitive. And these sensitivities allow for incredible depth and navigating life and understanding life that many people can't even experience or see. Although, like I said, I do feel that we will, as humanity, if we choose to evolve in that direction, we can access many of these traits within ourselves, but empaths naturally are going to have a bit of an advantage in this area. But it's going to be very, very important to honor your feelings and your senses and tuning in, most importantly, not repressing anything within yourself, but letting it grow and develop as it's meant to. The other challenge is going to be boundary issues. So many empaths struggle to set healthy boundaries, feeling guilty for saying no or prioritizing their own needs. This can lead to burnout and resentment, as they may feel taken advantage of by others. I don't even have to ask if anybody has felt this before, because I know the answer. A lot of us have gone through this. Boundaries can be the most difficult experience or aspect within ourselves that requires a great deal of effort constantly until we find our groove and until we step into our confidence and our power within and alignment with who we are. So it's going to be very crucial to be understanding of your own boundaries first, to not feel guilty. Watch my video on guilt, please. To not also excessively overgive, because it will trigger the lower impulses of others, where other people may take advantage of someone who is giving and who is kind and helpful, and then leaving the empath feeling that they are not giving enough or that they can't make things right. It's a constant hamster wheel, especially if you're dealing with people who are needy or who constantly are requiring your time or who are miserable. It's not your job to fix anyone. It's not your job to feel responsible for anyone, because everyone has their own story, their own contract, their own way. And if we as empaths are overextending ourselves to fix someone, to help someone, we're going to lose ourselves in that connection. And we're also doing a disservice for other people to also find their way. If we are constantly being leaned on and depended on, we're not giving the other people the opportunity to strengthen themselves. The next one is going to be isolation. Empaths can feel isolated or misunderstood, especially in environments that lack emotional depth or where their sensitivity is viewed as a weakness. This can create a sense of loneliness, as they may struggle to find like-minded individuals. All right, so this is something I touched on earlier, where they could be made fun of because they don't relate to everyone else in the world. They have more depth. They see things differently than many other people in levels of superficiality will not see and will not be able to understand. And they may just feel different, that no one else sees the world the same or feels as deeply as they do. But there are a lot of empaths in this world. I can guarantee you it's just a matter of being confident with who you want to surround yourself with, and maybe even cutting some people out if you don't feel very good around them. So listening and being very discerning and knowing what kind of groups of people or what kind of friends you want to have around you that will be a great reflection of yourself, but also support you as well. The other challenge is going to be self-care neglect. Empaths often prioritize the needs of others over their own, leading to neglect of their own emotional and physical well-being. This can manifest as exhaustion, anxiety, or even physical illness. So this goes into the challenge of the boundaries. Empaths may naturally feel responsible for others, where they lose themselves in other people's stories, in other people's dynamics, and they give and they give and they give, and they deplete themselves, where they completely lose themselves in other people's situations or even in matters of the world. It doesn't mean that you don't care if you are not doing this. If you are losing yourself, you are allowing yourself to be swept away and you're not honoring you. Right? So like I said earlier, everyone has their own path. Everything has its own cycles. Everything has its place in the world. And by detaching from that, it means that we are respecting ourselves. It means that we are taking care of ourselves. We honor ourselves. And it doesn't mean that we don't care. It means that we can show up more, because at the end of the day, we are all we've got. And if we're giving ourselves away, feeling that in order to care for someone and in order to show that we care, we need to give and give and give and just completely lose ourselves in order to feel that we're doing something, or in order to feel that we're helping enough. It will never be enough if we do that. We'll constantly give ourselves away and strip away at ourselves until we're nothing, until we have nothing left for ourselves. And it's doing a disservice to our being, to our body, to our soul. We're not here to suffer. We're not here to also help people in a way that we're losing ourselves. We're not here to carry people. We're here to be there for people, but in order for us to be there in a way that's empowering, that in a way that is supporting, we have to show up for ourselves first. And the final one is going to be energy drain. So social situations, especially large gatherings or intense emotional environments, can be particularly draining for empaths. They may need significant alone time to recharge and process their feelings. It's going to be very important for empaths to have a space for them to recharge. And also, again, the boundaries is going to tie in with this one. to make sure that they are removing themselves from situations that are hard on them. But also with that, there's a lot of learning to do to understand dynamics and where they feel safe versus unsafe or uncomfortable, and being discerning and empowering in their decisions to remove themselves from situations that are draining them or that are affecting them in difficult or challenging ways. This does take work for the empath for all of these challenges, to empower oneself, to create boundaries, to create emotional distance, to not lose oneself in the emotions of others and create emotional entanglements with other relationships, with other people, and bring it into themselves. It is a bit of a reversal process that we need to go through to reconnect with who we are and to understand our emotional complexities and our gifts that we have to offer the world, but also where we're losing ourselves. And it takes a little bit of wrestling and a little bit of navigating to understand this. But when you do find your rhythm and your flow, you will have so much more to offer the world. These challenges are going to turn into your strengths, which I'm going to go into next. And when empaths strengthen these and overcome these and understand this within themselves, the complexities within themselves and how these complexities are playing out in their interpersonal relationships, within their mindset, within their emotions, their behavioral patterns, they will become so enlightened and so wise, because they will have navigated the complexities and the range of emotions and the depths within themselves that they can turn into teachers, they can turn into healers, they can turn into mentors, they can turn into exceptional leaders. These are the strengths that can develop if the empath chooses to work on themselves. The first one is going to be self-awareness. Empaths can develop a strong sense of self-awareness that allows them to differentiate their feelings from those of others. This understanding helps them respond to their own emotions rather than being overwhelmed by external energies. So it goes back into what I said earlier about the difficulties with these emotional entanglements and emotional depletion. When an empath understands the difference between one's emotions and their emotions and the entanglement and becoming detangled from these emotional connections, then they will be able to help more. They will be able to show up more. They will be able to have a stronger sense of self as a result, and understanding, of course, the emotional depths of other people and understanding also how to respond to them, to again help a situation, to empower maybe other people, or to create constructive solutions through navigating difficult times and difficult challenges. The next one is going to be boundary setting. Learning to establish and maintain healthy boundaries is crucial for empaths. This includes recognizing their limits, learning to say no, and creating spaces where they feel safe and protected. Now, this is going to take some work. I've already talked about this before. This is going to take a lot of work. However, it will empower and strengthen the empath, and it will allow for the empath to have great clarity within themselves and within their path in life, within interpersonal relationships. The universe will also respond to their boundaries. If we have a lack of boundaries and we just let it keep going and going and going, our life is just going to be a mirror of how we feel within ourselves. But if we stand up for ourselves, if we declare that we do not want certain experiences in our life, or we need to establish boundaries within ourselves, then the universe and life itself is going to match how we are feeling within ourselves, or what we have declared, what we know to be our truth. The world is going to respond and match that accordingly. The next one is going to be self-care practices. So prioritizing self-care is essential for empaths to maintain their emotional health. This can include practices like meditation, mindfulness, physical activities, and spending time in nature, which helps them recharge their energy. So this actually could also lead into what empaths can offer the world. When empaths have gone through their emotional difficulties and complexities, maybe being very effective, not affected, not taking care of themselves, maybe again taking care of others and losing themselves, and they've gone through that process and they've gone through that experience, and then they introduce and incorporate self-care practices that help them through certain difficulties, they can turn around and help others. They can create social media content. They can be a public speaker, an advocate. They can study sciences or health in order to understand maybe a different dynamic and how to help the world in this kind of way because it worked for them. So there are many different ways of turning these challenges into superpowers. Once we've gone through the depths of ourselves, we can turn it around and help others in incredible ways. The next one is going to be resilience. Building resilience involves developing coping strategies for emotional challenges. Empaths can learn to manage their emotional responses and cultivate strength in the face of adversity, enhancing their overall well-being. Resilience comes with a lot of practice and a lot of determination. Even when you go through your downs, when you hit a down point, that is okay. There could be part of you after hitting a down point that wants to create change, that wants to keep going, that wants improvement in your life. This is what is going to develop resiliency. And the more that you go through these cycles, the stronger you get. So never give up on these cycles. Just keep going and allow yourself to move through some of these difficulties, to give yourself more learning tools in your toolkit, but also to build more resiliency moving forward. This is mental resiliency. This is emotional resiliency. It's physical resiliency. But it's also a sense of self that builds in the undercurrent of going through these motions and going through these cycles. And the final one is going to be empowered communication. Learning to express their feelings and needs assertively can help empaths navigate relationships more effectively. Empowered communication fosters understanding and encourages others to respect their boundaries. Now, assertiveness doesn't need to be aggressive. Assertiveness is simply feeling comfortable with what you're saying, who you are, how you're communicating, and establishing those boundaries. It is, in a way, also connecting with the power of your voice and essentially who you are deep within. And when that starts to awaken, your voice will become stronger, your boundaries will become more certain, you will become more discerning, and you will be able to properly and effectively communicate this to others. It can be in a gentle way, it can be in a compassionate way. It doesn't have to be aggressive and assertive in a dominating way, although if it needs to be, it can be. But empowered communication can also be effectively communicating how you feel, even speaking from the heart, even telling someone that you love them. That is difficult for a lot of people, opening one's heart and speaking right from that vulnerable place, being able to speak effectively based on the emotional complexities within oneself. So understanding the emotional complexities within the empath and over time, being able to effectively communicate is going to be an incredible gift that you will be able to exercise in your life. Okay, so once the empath has gone through their developmental stages, once they have gone through maybe dark night of the soul or deep emotional change and introspection and dissection and alignment and clarity and empowerment, these are the gifts that they have to offer the world. First one is going to be emotional support. Empaths provide a unique type of emotional support, often helping others feel seen and heard. Their ability to relate deeply can bring comfort to those experiencing hardship. So the ability over time, the empath will be able to build such a solid foundation for helping others, even as a friend, listening without judgment, holding the space for others, supporting others, feeling others. I feel you, I get you, I'm going to help, or even simply listening. And that is all. And that is very powerful. We aren't heard enough in society. A lot of us haven't felt heard or seen or understood as children. And we live in a very busy, fast-paced world. This is the byproduct of modern society where a lot of us don't feel heard, and sometimes it's really hard to open up in certain spaces. But when the empath has strengthened this aspect within themselves, they will offer a very safe and comfortable and trusting environment for others. The next one is going to be conflict resolution. Their understanding of multiple perspectives allows empaths to mediate conflicts effectively. They can help parties find common ground and work towards resolution by fostering empathy between individuals. So they can turn what maybe had been difficult in the past regarding interpersonal relationships into a strength. How many people have you known, or maybe yourself, who have gone through a divorce or a separation or even conflict within the family, but turned what you learned into experience to maybe help others, maybe even just offer advice or be a sounding board for a friend, or maybe writing a book or leading in some kind of way. When we go through some of the most difficult interpersonal relationship experiences, we learn through that, and it can offer a great amount of wisdom moving forward to help others. The next one is going to be healing abilities. Empaths often possess natural healing qualities, whether through comforting words, physical presence, or even holistic practices. They have a calming influence that can alleviate stress and anxiety in others. So when the empath has worked through their own shadow self, when they have resolved from very difficult aspects within the unconscious, within the false beliefs, they will be able to turn it around to help others in incredible, incredible ways. There are many modalities, there are many different teachers and styles of healers out there, of people who are guiding, assisting, and changing people's lives based on what they have gone through and based on tuning in with the gifts that they have. The next is going to be creativity. So many empaths contribute richly to the arts, using their sensitivity as inspiration. Their creative work often reflects deep emotional truths, resonating with others on a profound level. Now, this goes into the communication aspect that I touched on earlier around how difficult it is to communicate our deepest, most emotional experiences that are occurring within ourselves or that we've experienced in our outer reality. Creative arts is going to be one of those outlets to communicate this. These aspects can be very beautiful ways and methods for communicating how one feels within their deeper self, or translating their experience into some kind of medium for others to explore and enjoy. The depths, even if we're going through difficult times, are beautiful places to create from. It can also be healing for empaths to exercise creative outlets, to find ways of expression. This can also help the empath to understand what is happening within their deeper self, offering an opportunity to look at themselves maybe in a different light. So if this is resonating with you, even when you're going through the most difficult time, pick up some kind of medium for you to explore and create and communicate how you're feeling, even if it is just in the privacy of your own space. This can be a wonderful outlet, but also if you feel creative in a way of inspiring others or enlightening others, of course, that is going to be a beautiful way to resonate with the world. And the final one is going to be raising awareness. Empaths often feel compelled to bring attention to social issues, advocating for change and empathy in their communities. They can be powerful voices for the voiceless, using their insights to raise awareness and promote understanding. Empaths are also leading the charge right now for advancing humanity, for awakening consciousness, for driving positive change in this world. I would also like to add as a side note that the intuition of an empath is mighty powerful. If I had a business, I would absolutely make sure that I'm hiring at least 1 or 2 or 3 or however many, depending on the size of the business, empaths. They are essential for businesses. Imagine having empaths on your team who can navigate situations, who can help you choose, who can see maybe a little bit into the future. Their intuitive strength is so on point when they're really in their zone, when they're in the proper environments, and when they're supported and when they're listened to. So empaths, even if they're not working for a company, their intuition is a guiding light for the world. It can be a guiding light for a friend. It can be a guiding light for humanity. The intuitive aspect of an empath is greatly important, and for us, just as humans in this world, it's important for us to tune in with our intuition, as that is going to help us navigate all sorts of interesting times that we have ahead. All right, so I hope this video found you when you need it the most and offered a bit more insight into the life of the empath, and potentially, hopefully, also offered you some guidance for yourself if you are an empath or if you know anyone who is an empath in any kind of way. I'm wishing you all the best at this time and beyond, and take care.